Enjoying Life During a Pandemic. Hi, I'm Steven Shomler. Welcome to the Steven Shomler channel. I recently filmed 4 videos about enjoying life. I filmed those in February of 2020 and early March of 2020. The first video, How Mamma Mia Broke Me and Inspired Me to Learn How to Enjoy My Life. I posted that here on the Steven Shomler channel. And then I posted the remaining 3 videos over on the Spark to Bonfire channel. That channel is where I put content that's specifically created for people that are building brands or building businesses or pursuing life change. And those 3 videos, even though we're about enjoying life, are really geared toward people in one of those 3 categories. The first one of those 3 were Enjoy Your Life Right Now, 5 life-changing words. The next one in that series was I Can't Enjoy My Life Right Now, 6 BS excuses. And then the last video, I thought would be the last video in that series for a while, was How to Enjoy Your Life, the First Steps. And I debated, well, where should I put this video, Enjoying Life During a Pandemic? And it's not really geared toward people building brands or businesses or pursuing life change. It's geared toward everybody that I'm caring for that's struggling with this pandemic. And so I thought, what the heck, I'll post it here on the Steven Shomler channel. Now, those first 4 videos that I mentioned, I had planned to edit them. I headed off to Greece on Monday, March 13th. I thought that I would edit them when I got back from Greece and post them. But, you know, something happened while I was in Greece. The pandemic got even worse, and my trip was cut short. I got to Greece Tuesday night about 11 p.m., got to Thessaloniki. And by Thursday night, just 48 hours later, 11 p.m., I'm back in Thessaloniki. It was about 10 p.m., not even 48 hours later. I'm back in Thessaloniki and headed off for a plane the next day. And I got back to the U.S. on Friday, the 15th of March. And I got back and I thought about these videos and thought, wow, they seem kind of trite or kind of shallow and, you know, maybe tone deaf, really enjoying life right now, posting videos about those during a pandemic. And I thought, you know, I'm just gonna put them aside. But I've done lots of reflecting and lots of journaling and lots of listening the past few weeks. There's scores of people that I care for that have reached out to me, and I became more and more convinced that those videos and that teaching and this video here, Enjoying Your Life During a Pandemic, is super, super important. That conviction kept growing in me, and then last week happened to begin watching The Twilight Zone. It just felt like, what the heck, I'm living in a Twilight Zone. Never thought I'd go through a global pandemic, and here I am going through one. So I started watching The Twilight Zone and started with episode 1. They were aired first in 1959. And Rod Serling is pretty amazing. They're great writing. You know, episode 1, Where Is Everybody? Episode 2 is One for the Angels, kind of like One for the Ages, but One for the Angels. Episode 3, Mr. Dalton on Doomsday. Episode 4 was 6mm Shrine, and I love those and kind of got into them and enjoyed them. But then episode 5, man, it's called Walking Distance, and that one rocked my world. It's very deep. It's very philosophical. There's a lot in that episode, and that cemented it. I watched that video and said, that's it. I need to release and finish my content up Enjoying Life, and I need to make this video right here, Enjoying Life During a Pandemic. Let me tell you a little bit about that episode of Twilight Zone. I won't ruin it for you. I think it's kind of ironic that a TV show that first aired 61 years ago is what inspired me to do this, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of rich stuff there. So Martin Sloan is living in New York City. He does not enjoy life. He's miserable, and he heads off on an incredible journey. Won't ruin it for you, but through the course of this incredible journey he goes on, he ends up on a merry-go-round. And I don't know if you ever got to go on a merry-go-round when you were kids. I did. I used to get to go to South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa. You know, growing up in Southern California, my grandma would take us there once in a while, and we'd get to ride the big carousel there, and thought that was absolutely amazing. Of course, you know, one of my favorite all-time carousels is King Arthur's Carousel at Disneyland. I got to ride that and absolutely loved that. Recently, I just rode a carousel. I think I'll put a video up. It was even my notes, but down in Salem, Oregon, got a carousel, and I rode that. And because to me, a carousel is just so symbolic of childlike joy and enjoying your life. Anyways, Martin. Anyways, Martin Sloan has, toward the end of the episode, a really intense deep, philosophically rich conversation about enjoying life with someone who tells them, there's only one summer for every customer. And I won't ruin it for you, but man, that in the context of that episode, that's an amazing statement. And the person teaching Martin and helping him says, is talking about how he just doesn't enjoy his life, and says, perhaps there are merry-go-rounds and band concerts that you'll find when you'll get home. You're just not looking in the right place. And you kind of get the sense that Martin Sloan realizes maybe he could enjoy his life even though he's absolutely miserable. And as that episode unfolded, I was just convicted, wow, I've got to put these together. So here it is, enjoying life during a pandemic. So why do I think enjoying life is so important, particularly during a pandemic? Well, one, this is early April and we're at the front end of this thing, and I think it's going to go on for a long time. And I think the economic impacts are going to be with us long after the pandemic ends. There's going to be a lot of tough things and suffering and misery and awful things. And you being miserable through all of that doesn't do anybody any good. There's just don't be miserable. There's a better way to live. And I know this sounds crazy. It may sound inappropriate. It may sound like, what is this guy talking about? Things are hell right now. But let me tell you, you can enjoy life during a pandemic. You really, really can. I've been through some miserable situations. I made a video, We Will Get Through This, and I talk about 2 horrible situations that I've been through, and I've been through those. And through the second one, I learned how to enjoy my life before it hit. And when that second miserable, awful thing hit in my life, February 8th, 2016, I was able to grieve the misery I was in and then occasionally enjoy my life. And it made such a difference in my healing and my grieving from that tragedy. So let me tell you, don't be miserable, man. You can lean into your misery, or you can lean into enjoying life. And say, how? Well, if the idea of enjoying life sounds crazy and you don't know how, go watch those 4 videos. The one that's just before this one, How Mamma Mia Broke Me and Inspired Me to Enjoy My Life. Go watch the other 3 videos in this series over on the Spark to Bonfire channel. If that's like, I don't know how to enjoy my life, well, those videos will get you started and teach you about it. But there's something different that I'm sensing. Like I said, I've had scores of people reaching out to me, whether it's text or Instagram direct messages or Facebook direct messages, and caring for them. And I've picked up some tips, some things that I really think that will help you as you do the work, the journey, the experience of figuring out how to enjoy life during a pandemic. Here's the first one. It's okay to enjoy your life during a pandemic. I'm going to make a crazy statement. When I work with people directly in my Bonfire Insight clients, that's where I help people grow their brands or grow their businesses or change their life incredibly, which I've done with scores of people. Because, hey, I'm a life story alchemist. Go watch my video, What a Life Story Alchemist Is, or check out the article to figure out that one. But I'm a life story alchemist. I take the ordinary and help transform life stories into the extraordinary. I did that with mine. I do that with lots of people's. But when I meet with them, I tell them the most outlandish thing. I tell them, I give you permission to do X, whatever it is I'm talking about. The funnest one I ever had is this person was struggling and really didn't like her name, didn't like her current first name, didn't like her current last name. That was her ex-husband's. She didn't want to go back to her maiden name. There was issues there. And so I said, well, hey, crazy talk. I give you permission to change your name. And it was a pretty intense meeting. She was crying. We were actually at a food cart pod in Portland, sitting at a picnic table, something I hope to get back to someday when all this is behind us. And she stopped and she looked up at me shocked and said, well, who the hell are you to give me permission to change my name? I said, nobody. But if I can give you permission to change your name, so can the person in your mirror. And the next day she went and changed her name. And so I give you permission to enjoy your life during a pandemic. Now, I have no business giving anyone permission to do anything, but I'm telling you, sometimes people, Ken Wilson, man, I love him so much. He taught me years ago that when you're in leadership, you have to give people permission to do all kinds of crazy things. So tip number 1, I give you permission to enjoy life during a pandemic. And if you're wrestling with guilt or shame or think you should enjoy your life in a pandemic, or there's something wrong with it, I encourage you to journal about that, because there's plenty of misery to go around. And as we'll get to the other tips I have, you're going to have lots of discouragement and grieving and struggling. You might as well, along the way, also enjoy your life. Tip number 2, find joy every day. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. And there'll be some days where you're like, I just can't. I'm just having a really bad day and I can't. And that's okay. There will be days. I've had days like this. We're only as I count the clock in my world, I'm like 3 weeks into this. And I've had rough days where I'm so discouraged by the tragedy people are going through and all the people dying and friends losing businesses and losing jobs and struggling with income that I have days I'm wiped out and I can't do anything, but I'm still trying, other than those rough days, to find joy every day. And it will change your world. You will do much better getting through this pandemic if you will do the work, put the effort in of finding joy every day. Tip number 3, enjoy what you can. Enjoy what you can. You may not have great food. You may not have all the things you want. There may be a lot of things that you used to think were everyday occurrences and are luxuries you don't have. There was a time I loved really good coffee. And I had, a coffee maker with really good coffee. And then in the summer of 2011, we ended up homeless and moved into the middle half of an unheated, unfinished, one-car garage. And great coffee and a great coffee maker, that was out the door. That which was a normal everyday thing became a luxury. And then one day someone gave me some Folgers instant coffee in a jar. And I'll tell you, there would have been a time in life, I'm not gonna drink that. But in that context, in that situation, in that mess, I was so grateful for that Folgers of coffee and that instant coffee. And, I didn't always have cream, didn't always have sugar during that time. I love a little bit of cream, a little bit of sugar in my coffee. I know that the coffee purists say that's a naughty no, but that's what I do. But that Folgers coffee, man, I enjoyed what I could. And I had a lot of meals that were less than stellar at that time of my life. Of course, when you basically are homeless, that's what you'd have is a lot of less than stellar meals. But I learned to enjoy them. So even if you're in the midst of misery, just let me recap tip number 3, enjoy what you can. Tip number 4, practice gratitude. As people that hang out with me know that I love dictionary.com, or those of you that watch my videos, I love to look up things on dictionary.com, and dictionary.com defines gratitude as the feeling or quality of being grateful or having thankfulness. And I'm telling you, you have got to have an attitude of gratitude. If you're going to try and enjoy life through a pandemic, through this misery that we're in, you need an attitude of gratitude. And I'll tell you, I can tell people who are grateful and I can tell people who aren't. There's just a different energy about them. And I would so much rather hang around grateful people. Even in the midst of misery, you can be grateful. That's tip number 4. Tip number 5. Tip number 5. This is a rough one. I don't even want to tell you about this, but it's really, really important, and that is grieving. If you want to enjoy life during this pandemic, odds are you're going to have to grieve. Now, why? Well, first, there's going to be a lot of stuff you are going to need to grieve. I know some of you already have lost jobs that may never come back. You've lost businesses that may be gone forever. I'm very connected to the Portland brewery and culinary community, and I worry about breweries and restaurants and bars that may never open up again. March 16th here in Portland, all of the restaurants and bars and across the whole state of Oregon were closed. And I worry, will they ever open again? So there's going to be grieving about that. For some people, they're going to be grieving about loss of our way of life. I think we're going to be in a situation where it's like we talk about before 9/11, and think we're going to talk about before coronavirus. I don't know how, but I think our lives are going to be different. I think you're going to grieve that. And then, I hope I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people are going to die. I think a lot of people are going to die here in the United States. And hopefully it's not me. Hopefully it's none of you watching this video, that you watch the video and then you pass away. Hopefully none of you that watch this video have loved ones that pass away, but odds are you will. And I hope I'm wrong. I think a lot of people are dying. There's going to be a lot of things to grieve. So why do you need to grieve if you're going to enjoy life during a pandemic? This is a bit funny, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's really, really true, and it really, really applies. Here's why. Grieving is like going to the bathroom. If you don't do it, bad things happen. You have to get it out. And if you're stuffing that grief, and you're not grieving, and you're not crying, you're not leaning into your grief, it's going to eventually build up and hinder your ability to enjoy life. And you're going to end up miserable or despondent or just very unpleasant. Man, lean into your grieving. I may end up making a teaching series about grieving. It seems like for years I taught about grieving. I lost my son Zane 2016, and I walked out all of my own teaching, just brutal stuff. But grieving is so important. Don't underestimate it. And it's as crazy as it sounds. If you're going to enjoy life during this pandemic, you're going to have to grieve. Tip number 6, rest. This is very discouraging right now. I'm telling you, I've lived it. I think it's going to get more discouraging. I hope I'm wrong, but this is a very discouraging time. What's the song by the Birds? It came about Ecclesiastes, for every time there is a season. I think this is a very discouraging time right now. When you go through discouraging times, it exhausts you, it wears you out, it wears me out, it exhausts me, and you have to rest. And rest can be sleep. Rest can be downtime where you're just not doing anything and not having to connect with anyone. You have a good book, or you're watching stupid TikTok videos. That's something I've been doing lately. Or they're just chilling out and just rest. You don't have to be asleep to get good rest, but trust me, if you're going to enjoy life through this period, you need to make sure that you are well rested, if at all possible. And some of you may be in a situation where you can't, but if you're in that situation, then you need to look for times where you can snatch rest here and there, because I tell you, exhaustion will discourage you faster than anything. Tip number 7, celebrate. Celebrate during a pandemic? Are you kidding? No, I'm very serious. I think you need to celebrate even during a pandemic. I believe that celebration is a very, very important spiritual discipline. Some of you are familiar with Richard Foster's book, Celebration, a Discipline. He has a chapter all about celebration from a spiritual perspective. I'm telling you, you need to celebrate. And there's lots of different ways to celebrate. Last week my sweetheart showed me an Instagram video. There's an Instagram series, Paul Feig. Hope I said your name right, Paul. I love you. Thank you for what you're doing. I didn't know who he was until I watched this video. Apparently he's a director. He's directed movies. He used to be an actor. And he does this 5 o'clock, every day. He does this little Instagram show. And the one I saw, he's talking about celebrating. And he said, because we're going to win this. We're going to win this. And he's dancing and there's music playing. And I'm like, who is this crazy man in this magenta tuxedo with disco ball lights playing this crazy song and saying, we're going to win this, we're going to get through this, and just his enthusiasm, it kind of broke me. I just started crying and sobbing because I needed that hope. I needed that hope. And of course, he ends every one of them, he ends by making a special cocktail. And I love cocktails. My sweetheart loved cocktails, so it was right up my alley. But I'm telling you, his joy and his commitment that we will get through this, that kind of his daily celebration of life, don't miss that. And if you don't like cocktails, or Paul Feig doesn't speak to you like he spoke to me, that's okay. You find your way to celebrate. You need to celebrate through this. That will really help you enjoy life through a pandemic. If you're struggling, I made a video, we will get through this, just my thoughts on the pandemic, and they made a follow-up video to that, 7 tips for getting through the pandemic. Just know that I'm thinking of you, I'm pulling for you, and I'm wishing the best for you.